Whether you're on the side of, I really want 6 to be in Little Nightmares 3, if not, I'm not buying it, or, I'm not really that bothered. I hope the story's good. Either way, you've got to admit, and, even I would, that 6 has been quite at the forefront of Little Nightmares. It's always part of the advertising material, it's always part of like the center story, and we've seen 6 throughout literally all of the games so far, so 1, 2, and Very Little Nightmares. We've seen her in them in some sort of capacity, so knowing now, or knowing we should say, that 6 isn't going to appear in Little Nightmares 3, I can understand why people are upset, but let me try and offer a perspective from a more mutual side. So, of course, if you don't know, there was an article from Ungeek, I believe it's called, and they claim from a Manalotto, Little Nightmares 3 has a new story, but it's still set in the same world, confirms producer. So, nothing particularly wrong with that. Anyway, so of course we get into the article itself, and I'll link it below, of course, so you can have a... While 6 has been a fixture of the series since it began, she won't appear in Little Nightmares 3's story, though the game producer confirms that the new game will still take place in the same world. So, as well as early access, they of course got an early sit down with Coralie and were able to discuss Little Nightmares 3, I imagine, for the interview. And Coralie did explain that the game will be a new story that players can appreciate, though it will still be a treat for fans who played the first 2 games. Now, when I first sort of read the article, I didn't personally feel like there was an outright claim that 6 wasn't going to be in Little Nightmares 3. It just seems to be more focus on providing a new perspective and a new story for, of course, supermassive games and, of course, the story they wanted to tell. Now, regardless, if 6 isn't in Little Nightmares 3, it isn't the end of the world. I mean, but there's something that I, of course, want to point out, and I believe that, Tarsier were actually planning on doing this. Now, again, we know there is some type of Bible or law book for Little Nightmares, as it's been told to us beforehand. So we know there was a plan. Possibly 6 being not included in future plans was probably more likely in there. Let's be real. Now, again, the article to me doesn't outright say it. I think maybe the site suggests it rather than confirming Coralie said this. Again, the way I'm reading it is that Coralie wants to highlight the fact that there is a new story to be told, and that, of course, fans will obviously see little glimmers of, previous titles or some kind of connection. Like I said, not the worst thing in the world. Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why I think. I think Tarsier Studios were preparing us for this quite a while ago. Now, of course, Little Nightmares 1, 6 symbol is basically the front of everything there. Big deal here. Character design, all the silhouette sort of stuff, everything about it. 6 had to be sort of the main one. It was just brilliant character design, and that's that. Of course, leaning into Little Nightmares 2, 6 became a back burner of an AI. Of course, you didn't get to play her. You just you were able to still have her around as like more of a, of course, AI, but it's more of like a fan thing, you know what I mean? It was nice to know she was there and we saw her. In Very Little Nightmares, this wasn't controlled by Tarsier, but of course that was a little bit wheedled out again, and of course it was made a little bit less obvious, but I still think, of course, the connection to 6 is there as well. But I believe Tarsier, from very early on, didn't want to just do 6's story. Of course, it would be very nice if everything coincides. Again, great storytelling, but it doesn't need to all the time. Just because, obviously, 6's story ends, it doesn't mean other stories can't progress and get even better. Like, for instance, Little Nightmares 1, we had the story of the runaway kid and all the gnomes, and, that was fantastic. And they obviously were trying to experiment outside of 6. They were getting a feel for it. And I think that's one of the reasons why they had to take Little Nightmares 2 backwards. It had to be a previous title in the sequence to Little Nightmares 1, because in reality they don't want to continue 6's story. They said what they said, they did what they did what they wanted. That's how they wanted it to end. They didn't want it to elaborate further. And hats off to them. People like the yellow Dorito, and I don't blame them, It's an iconic design, and also mono. So I admire them for having the balls to do so, to then drive away. And obviously, of course, Little Nightmares 2 was the last installment of Tarsier, and that's okay. You know, Tarsier have got their own thing going now, which hopefully I'll have a video for soon. But of course, I believe they're keeping to their original story. I actually don't think, you know, I've seen some comments that have been like, oh, Supermassive Games have took it away, they're doing their own thing. Well, yeah, they have to. They can't just keep telling the same old story. They are going to have to progress it. And again, like I mentioned, I think and I believe that the Bible of Little Nightmares has that included. I think there isn't going to be just a sole story. Again, it could happen. We could still see 6. We don't know. It might not be in Little Nightmares 3, although I am on the fence. I still think it's 50-50. But it doesn't mean down the line we won't see her again or anything. Because you got to remember, Little Nightmares, massive. Like, in reality, the nowhere is like endless when you think about it. There's so many possibilities, so many spin-offs, so many characters that you can choose to talk about. Look at the Sounds of Nightmares, look at Very Little Nightmares. There's so many ways to branch off, and I think that's what Coralie was highlighting in the article, is that they're doing like so much transmedia stuff now. That's, you know, they're doing loads of stories, and you know, I applaud them for that, because of course Little Nightmares is a fantastic world and the setting is interesting as hell, and the nowhere phenomenal, and I want to see the Ferryman. If I don't see the I'd be more angry if I didn't see the Ferryman in Little Nightmares 3. I really want to see the Ferryman or the Mirror Man. I'll take the Mirror Man. Is it right to be upset that 6 yes, I think you have every right to be upset at the fact that 6 isn't there, but not in a sense of like it should spoil your whole view of Little Nightmares 3 because of it. You gotta remember that Little Nightmares 3 is now being housed in a new studio. Of course, the producers are still the same, Bandai's still looking after it, but of course Supermassive Games want to put a spin on it. Let them. Don't not let it evolve. Why not? They could obviously bring fantastic ideas forward, and of course they already have by the look of it. If the mirror thing at the end isn't a sign of the Mirror Man, I don't know what to say. All right, leave it as that. But again, the Mirror Man is such a unique part of the nowhere. Like, the comics for that were fantastic. I haven't even mentioned the comics. but the comics were fantastic, and the way he was displayed was amazing. And it's like things like that. Why would you want to just tunnel vision just because of 6? Again, you are more than right to be upset about it, because, you know, again, 6 has been the figurehead from the very start and all the way up till now. And of course, now Little Nightmares 3, we don't have 6 in there that we know of. We still don't know. There's been no yes or no from that article. That's what I think. Maybe it might have been took the wrong way, or I might have been taking it the wrong way, but I still don't feel like that's a yes or no guaranteed. So again, take that with a pinch of salt. But I don't think you'll see the last of 6. Maybe you won't see her in Little Nightmares 3, but I don't think you will see the last of her. I think she is a very iconic character in the world of Little Nightmares. Again, I'm all for progressing story. I think 6's story ended on the moor. I think the whole her leaving the moor was basically that. I think there was nothing we needed. I mean, it was open to interpretation, and I think that's what Tarsier wanted to create, and they did. But I don't think like just dragging it out, just showing her every 2 minutes is just worth it. Just for, you know, why? What is there any aid to the story for that? Or, I mean, if it's a key piece of lore and all that matters, and that's great. I mean, look at how subtle the DLC was. Look how subtle that was when I think it was a runaway kid went into the surveillance part of the moor, like with the eye, and then you saw 6 just, you know, brisking through the shoes. And that was it. That was as much as you got them together. And, you know, that I think was the best it could have been. I think actually forcing them together for no reason to make it, you know, more marketable or something silly like that, I think it's not worth it. So I think, yeah, I wouldn't be totally upset. Of course, I wouldn't be sad if she isn't there, but again, I'm not going to take that article as gospel. I actually think it's a bit open to interpretation. I think that they just really want to highlight more that there is a new story coming, and of course Alone and Low are interesting characters with depth, and I think that's very clear, especially with some of the things we've seen so far. And one of my favorite things I've seen so far is Low's bracelet. And again, I think I've said it before in a video or two beforehand, but the whole comic charm thing coming back. And I like the idea of the bracelet charm thing, because of course it links back to the real world, and then it brings the whole sort of, oh, can they get back into the real world through this? Can they leak the residents into the real? And yeah, it makes there's so much room to tell stories in there, so why not? Again, it doesn't have to be limited to 6. Again, I can very much understand why people, of course, would be upset about it. But I think, you know, I wouldn't knock it without trying it first. I think give Little Nightmares 3, of course, the go. See what happens. We'll see what happens in the story together. Little Nightmares in general isn't about 6. Maybe it was at the start because, you know, of course they were making a game and a project. They probably didn't actually think they were going to continue it, and you know, it turned into this big balloon. And now there's loads of stuff going on within it. So I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you think you're going to turn away just because 6 isn't there. Again, from the article, I can't see a definite no. I just think it's suggested. But again, let me know what you think in the comments below. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, and make sure you hit like and subscribe. If you could subscribe, that would really help me out and help the channel. Thank you for watching the video. If you love Little Nightmares and can't wait for Little Nightmares 3 stuff, you know, again, I'll be covering it like mad. I'll be doing things like Let's Plays, flying cameras. We'll do some exploring. We'll do some theory crafting. I've got some people lined up to play it with me, so it's gonna be fantastic. And I'm really excited for Little Nightmares 3. So yes. But yeah, with that being said, have a lovely morning, day, or night, wherever you are in the world. Stay safe, and I'll see you all in the next Little Nightmares theory video. Bye.